So there's all these kinds of things that go into the postmodernist history, and so they say, well, anything that we reproduce here is nothing more than historical fiction, the narrative, and we can never know whether that narrative is true. Yeah, well, the modernist would be, we can use methods and so forth to get to the past. It was a historian from years ago that talked about, when we're looking at the past, it's like wir sind eigentlich gewesen, where we want to look at how it actually occurred. And so this is like realist history, it's called, that we want to know how things actually happened. We want to have certainty that it happened this way. A postmodernist comes along and says, no, we can't have that kind of certainty because there are so many different challenges to the past. We start off with, events happened, but they happen within a certain grid. And that grid involves interpretation. So like 9/11 that happened here in the United States, we interpret it within a certain grid of being attacked by Islamic terrorists, okay? And this is what happened in our country. But the nation of Israel would put it within a little different grid. And they'd say, well, yes, that was a terrorist attack, Islamic terrorists on your nation, but Islamic terrorists have been initiating attacks all over the world. It just finally came to your house. A Muslim over in, let's say, a jihadist in Afghanistan or Pakistan might say that they've got a different narrative. They'd say, these weren't terrorists that did it. These were holy men engaged in jihad in the cause of Islam, the true religion, and they gave their lives for a good cause. So you have these different grids in which the narrative is told. So what actually happened? Because everybody's putting their own spin on it. That'd be one thing. Another thing is, how are we learning about the past? When we talk about Jesus, well, if we're looking at a Jewish leader in that day, say Caiaphas, the high priest who had turned him over to Pilate to have him crucified, he is going to look at the data and explain it differently than, say, one of Jesus' disciples did. And so we are learning about the past. Our only window into the past is through the eyes of specific people. Yep. And they're looking at things from different grids and different horizons. And then you've got the problem of memory, right? That memory is not perfect. We all know that there are occasions where when we don't recall the past accurately. And that's not just with us, it's even with historians. They're also relying on sources who have their own horizons and grids that they're reporting the facts from, and they may not always be accurate. Then, you put all that together, and then even us moderns, we are interpreting them. So we're interpreting others who are interpreting others who are interpreting facts or data. And so you get down to the thing, and the postmodernists are saying, see, we just can't even know the past. We can know just bare facts about the past, but putting together a narrative, there's just too many things you can't know. And then when it comes to Jesus, all right, we might be able to establish he claimed to be divine, but that doesn't mean we can establish he is divine. We can establish, a lot of historians will say, well, we can establish that the disciples claimed and believed that Jesus rose from the dead, but we can't establish that Jesus actually rose from the dead. So there's all these kinds of things that go into the postmodernist history, and so they say, well, anything that we reproduce here is nothing more than historical fiction, the narrative. And we can never know whether that narrative is true. Some may be more true than others, but we don't know if any of it's true. Now, the radical postmodernists are the ones that would deny and say history is just a dead discipline. But they're the radical ones, and most historians haven't followed that way.